This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. And just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barreiro's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Well, we've been very guest heavy over these first 2 hours, so I'm assuming I've given you plenty of time to come up with 5 stirring sports headlines following a big weekend of sports. You must have plenty on the docket.
Oh, of course. Well, we'll start here.
Time now for the obligatory Kevin Fallness Minnesota Wild mention.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to get the text from Fallness.
Can't blame you.
Yeah, so
I mean, the Twins did play today, but I understand why you might want to start to keep your phone from buzzing.
Well, it's true. Well, it will anyways, because I mentioned him. The Wild, they get the Devils in New Jersey tonight. It's a rematch of the game a couple nights ago where even John Hines said they looked pretty pedestrian in their effort level. And like Russo said in the last segment, that's kind of a byproduct of the way that they have to play, because they have to play super tough because they just don't have the goal-scoring power right now without Kaprizov in the lineup. It's just a fact. So because of that, if one or two guys in the lineup are not with it, the whole system falls like a house of cards. So, here we go. All caps, do your job, and then explicit that I'm not going to say on the air. So
probably
that's
a good idea.
Yeah. So cover starts at 6 right here on the Fan in less than an hour. We'll send you out to New Jersey, but Wild and Devils could be chippy, as Russo said as well.
Color me intrigued. I will check it out. I want to see how they come out after the coach really laid it out there. And, again, as a normal fan of any team, when you're in the final couple weeks of a long season and you're battling for your playoff lives, the last thing you want to hear as a fan is like, yeah, they just weren't ready to play. They just didn't seem like they were motivated. I mean, we've seen it last night in the Wolves game, the first quarter, they were sleepwalking, down 14 to the team without its best player. And so it's hard for fans to justify why am I so emotionally invested in this team if they can't be bothered to be, get the spirit to play as hard as they can the final 5 to 10 games of the season. So let's see how they come out. As we just heard with Russo, the Devils playing their little soccer game in the background. They're loosey-goosey. They're ready. They fear nothing from the Wild. They're not wearing the green and golds, right? They're back to the typical colors tonight, I assume?
They're in their regular white aways, yes.
Speaking of uniforms, not to jump on your touchdown call.
Okay.
The NFL is now allowing teams to wear their alternate uniforms up to 4 times a season.
Ugh.
That seems like overkill, doesn't it? Should it be like a once-a-year thing?
I think so. I mean, as far as our squad goes, I wish they would never wear anything besides. The all-whites were ugly for us. I liked the Vikings all-whites.
I did too.
I thought they were clean.
For some reason,
ours looked gross.
What do they call it? Winter Storm or Winter
Warrior? Winter Whiteout?
It's not enough to
Winter Walrus.
You have to have a name for the uniforms as well.
Yeah. So, no, if it were up to me, our club would just wear the green and gold.
We're old school.
As long as I live, they should be in those uniforms.
Yeah.
Let's go here. Speaking of uniforms, I guess, the Wolves, I don't know, that was a terrible segue. We'll just move on. They beat the Pistons. Uniforms were grabbed in a huge brawl at the Target Center. It sounded like this.
You go.
This one's gotten testy. It's got physical. Here's Holland to drive. Baseline, runs it up over Nas and hits it. He comes up swinging his arms, wondering where the foul was. 39-29. Pistons back up by 10. Nas fakes the handoff, keeps it himself, drives. He got fouled. Holland picks it up. And now Nas and Holland going at it. Dante steps in, and now both teams have to be separated here. Dante takes Holland right out of play. It's a pile-up under the basket. It's gotten more than heated, and they are still going at it. The whistle continues to blow. There are bodies piled up into the first few rows of the seats as tempers have flared here early in the second quarter. They are still going at it along the baseline there.
This is going to surprise you, but I was watching the game live when that happened.
I'm stunned.
And you could feel it. Like, you knew it was coming. They were jawing back and forth. They were were a couple times where it almost came to pushing and shoving. Dante just looked like he was ready to fight somebody. Even 5 minutes before that, it looked like he was trying to get something going. So, but it woke up the Wolves. It was a pedestrian, I would say, first quarter and a half, and they lit the world up. Now, it does help that how many players from the Pistons got ejected? 3 or 4?
3.
Yeah, 3.
But none of their stars. Not that they have a ton of stars,
Yeah.
but Beasley, Hardaway, those guys were playing. Alan Horton on the call, Wolves Radio Network. I feel like if Dan were here today, he would have felt compelled to name that fight. Like, do we go with the Minneapolis Melee? Do we go with the Brawl at the Bullseye, which is what I kind of favored? Yeah. I'm open to suggestions if anybody wants to play along. 64686. You're right. It took a while to wake them up. It really took till after halftime because the Pistons were in control really after the fight for a while. Ant looked disinterested, as Johnny Athletic told us in the 3 o'clock hour. No, I guess it was top of the hour at 4. He removed the padding and the taped up thumb, which had stitches, were ultimately removed after the game. At halftime, that was taken off, and Ant looked much more like his usual self, scoring 20 points in the third quarter. Gobert, a 19 and 25 rebound night. McDaniels was brilliant. It was just a really solid second half defensive lockdown and a team that got their act together and beat an undermanned team, even though they themselves were undermanned with Nas and Dante ejected after the fight. Detroit was even more undermanned. And while they're a very good team and a playoff team and a team that was coming off a win over Cleveland without Cade Cunningham, that was a game you had to win. And they did that. And now we brace for any possible suspensions leading up to tomorrow night's massive game at Denver. That could happen tonight. That could happen tomorrow morning. We'll wait and see who is or is not available for your Wolves in Denver tomorrow night.
The Twins, they played a game today. It didn't look like it for a lot of the game. They lose 9-0 to the White Sox, who's actually dressed like a seat night in Chicago. The full crowd there. They were no hit through, I think, 6 1/3.
Correct.
It took us to the start of our show before they finally got on the board with Willie Castro, who got rewarded for that hit by getting sent onto the mound because the Twins waved the white flag as they probably should have. The game was over. The Twins continue to not be able to mark. They can't hit. They can't pitch. I mean, come on. So copyright noon to 3. So there's your Twins, 9-0 losers.
Yeah, when Willie Castro is your best pitcher on the afternoon, you've got some issues. He's also their best hitter. They only got 2 hits. They were down 9-0 after 3 innings. Chris Paddock rocked 3 dingers, surrendered, including a couple of 3-run shots. You can't stop the White Sox. You really can only hope to contain them. Just a nightmarish start for a Twins season. Carlos Correa's next base hit will be his first of the 2025 season. He and Buxton both got pulled after 1 at bat today. Let's take a look during the break and see if we have seen any reporting on why they were pulled from the games today, if they waved the white flag that early, down big early, but that's worth following up on. But yeah, just a nightmarish start for your Minnesota Twins, who are unable to put the ball in play right now, and the pitching staff not helping either. It's about as ugly as it gets. If they don't show something before the home opener Thursday, crowd might turn on them, like game 1. Not necessarily the players, but ownership. Like, really? You thought that just running back the squad was going to do a whole lot? So far, so ugly.
They were worried about selling the team, which there's been no progress on.
Correct.
So
Correct.
Let's go to your wheelhouse here. The Final Four is set. And if you like just picking chalk in your bracket, you probably are very happy right now. All 4 number 1 seeds, first time since 2008 that every number 1 seed made it to the Final Four. Auburn, Florida is the first matchup on Saturday. Duke, Houston will be the second. That's April 5th. Again, we talked about it, I think, either Sunday or Friday, whenever we were together. We've been together a lot this week.
I'm a little tired of you at this point.
Yeah, I understand. I have that effect on people. You can look at it as it's boring and there's no Cinderella, or you can look at it as these are the best of the best teams and we're going to see them go at it. I kind of am in the latter, but I need the local angle as a non-hoops guy, and there really isn't one as far as the Midwest is concerned.
If you bought tickets to the Final Four, you are thrilled because you're seeing the 4 heavyweights. I mean, KenPom is the rating system on teams that's really interesting and effective. And these 4 teams are among the 10 strongest teams college basketball has put on via KenPom in the last 10, 20 years. So it's an amazingly strong at the top year for college hoops. Interestingly, as you said, it's the first time since 2008 since all number ones made it. That's the only time it's happened. And that was also in San Antonio, which was on my mind when I filled out my brackets. Like, I could see history repeating this year of all years.
And?
Well, I just couldn't do it. I'm not a chalk guy. I put Tennessee in there. I just saw in my mind a Florida-Tennessee championship game because I love that Zakai Ziegler, that little point guard, along with Chaz Lanier. I just thought those two guys might catch fire, but we didn't have, outside of the Florida game over the weekend, the Elite Eight, we saw 3 blowouts. It was really ho-hum. So, yeah, typically I like to see a team rise up and get to the Final Four. But, man, those 2 matchups you just talked about, Duke, Houston, then you get the All-SEC game, Auburn, Florida. You got big-time stars on all 4 of those squads. Big-time future NBA players. And as I said, I think yesterday morning, Duke looks like, to me, the class of the field. They just have been dominant. I didn't know that I'd see that because their conference wasn't very good. But funny, when you can recruit anybody you want and you know how to coach, you have a chance to compete. Cooper Flagg's the real deal. He's one of the best freshmen we've ever seen. They've got great pieces around him, all 5-star recruits. And I think they're the team to beat. They're certainly favored heading into the Final Four.
I got one more for you. Yesterday was the final round of the Texas Children's Houston Open. Minwoo Lee, the Aussie, he holds on. I believe it's his first ever PGA Tour win. It looked like he was going to cruise to victory. It became very interesting, very fast between Gary Woodland. Great comeback story for him on full swing this last season. And Scotty, who's always in the mix, ends up winning it. I loved the move by Minwoo Lee of doing the aim point putting on the tap in to win it.
That was awesome.
I thought that was really funny. He's
less than a foot to go.
Yeah, he's a charismatic guy. Love him on TGL. So no, good for him. Did you watch any of that? Because it was close. It looked like it wasn't going to be, but it became very nerve-wracking very fast.
Yeah, I was actually more locked in than I normally would be with Elite Eight basketball going on, but as Tennessee was getting blown out, I lost all interest in that game, so I switched to the golf. It was entertaining, and for Minwoo Lee, whose sister is a multiple major winner on the LPGA Tour, you got to know he's felt some pressure to finally break through. And as you said, he had a 4 or 5 shot lead on the back 9. Looked like he was cruising. And here comes Woodland, and here comes Scotty Scheffler.
Never who you want to see climbing up the leaderboard.
No, I mean, he looks so cool. Like, he did look in command for the most part, but if you look up and suddenly see Scheffler a stroke behind, I mean, I think your butt kind of clenches a little bit. You go, I can't let this go. So no, I was happy for him. He seems like a cool youngster in his mid-20s, and he's been close, but he hasn't gotten there. I'll add one. The Golden Gopher women are ahead of Florida 49-40. Late third quarter of the semis of the WBIT. Off to a good start. They're holding on. 9-point lead. Late third quarter. That game available on the Plus. 96.7 if you are so interested. But stay with us because we'll give you updates if you're so inclined between now and 6 o'clock. Getting a lot of submissions for naming the fight at Target Center. We'll go through that when we come back from break. We're done? Well, those are our 5?
That's 5.
All right,
6,
nice
actually.
Oh, yeah. We gave him a bonus.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right, so we'll go through some of the submissions. I also have gotten several texts asking for any updates on the Grand Theft Auto in the Sinekin household. Where are we with that? Had a car stolen last week. I do have an update, so I'll provide you with that because I know you're all dying to know. We're guest-free the rest of the way. We'll catch up on some texts and take you to wild hockey at the top of the hour. It's a bumper to bumper on the Fan.
Join Meat Sauce and Nordo for a live broadcast of Saturdays with Sauce at the Twin Cities Auto Show Saturday, April 19th. Drop by the iHeart Zone from noon to 2 to catch the show. Meet the guys. Snag your KFAN gear. Full details now, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
5:21 on a Monday afternoon. Dave Sinekin, Brett Blakemore, we're with you till the top of the hour. Was scrolling through X during the break, happened to catch a Lavelle tweet where he didn't feel compelled to label a nickname on the fight at Target Center, something we were just talking about because, I don't know, no punches were thrown. It wasn't, to him, it didn't rise to that level. It's never stopped us before. I'm a little underwhelmed by the some of the ideas that have come in through the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line, 64686. The tilt at Target Center, the Target Center tussle. Alliteration's almost mandatory when you do these things, is it not?
Do you think it needs to rhyme?
I don't.
I think the best, obviously, is Malice at the Palace. I mean, that's undefeated.
And that is the Pistons, obviously. Yeah. So I thought of that, and I was trying to come up with something that rhymed with center or bullseye or target, and I struggled. We got a couple Motown melees, but this didn't happen in Motown. So to me, it's the Minneapolis melee. That feels too obvious. The tussle at Target, the skirmish at the center. I don't think I've seen anything. Ooh. All right, here's your winner. There's no alliteration. There's no rhyming. But 507 guy comes in with Dante's Inferno. That's perfect. That's perfect because Dante is the one that took exception to how Nas was being dealt with, and he jumped right in and said, no, we're not doing this. And he looked just like the guy he had looked like on the court, the one Timberwolf that seemed really interested in playing up until that point. Dante's Inferno. We can stop right there. I love that. I also saw a tweet earlier this afternoon that legendary KSTP sportscaster Joe Schmidt has announced his retirement at the end of April. And I want to just make note of that because he was sort of the last man standing, right? Randy Shaver, Mark Rosen, Joe Schmidt. I guess, Jim, what's his KMSP guy? Jim Rich is still there. So I hate to not mention that, but for Joe Schmidt, legendary career, fantastic at what he does, and I wish him all the best as he announced that he will be hanging them up at the end of April. Okay, promised I would give you the update on the Grand Theft Auto situation with the Sinekins. Quickly bring you up to speed in case you don't know what's been going down. Got a call from my son Jackson early Thursday morning of last week that he woke up and realized that the keys he had left on his dresser in his bedroom, which had been locked, were gone, along with his wallet. And he went downstairs in the house he lives in at IU with some buddies, found his wallet, money still there on the table, went outside, car nowhere to be found. Calls the police. They make a report. They check the license plate, and sure enough, they find the car that has been driven in Evansville, Indiana. That was about, when they saw the car on the camera, it was already 3 hours later. So at this point, who knows where the car could be? That was early. That was middle of the morning on Thursday. We heard nothing again until I was in here at this seat Friday afternoon, filling in for Dan. About 3:30, my phone rings while I'm on the air, and it's an 812 number. That's Bloomington, Indiana. It was a police officer saying, "We've got your car. We found it. It's in Evansville. More details to follow." We got nothing, no information over the weekend. Apparently, they all take the weekend off. Found out today that they arrested a guy. They actually got him in the car. He was driving the car when they pulled him over. Still driving the car, same license plate. Like, he didn't change the plates, didn't get the car chopped up. He's still driving the car. So they arrested him. Jackson sent me a mugshot. The dude looks like a real loser. He does have a long rap sheet. He's 28, and he will be charged with a felony. I got that from victim advocate called me today to tell me, like, did your son get your car from the impound lot? Well, you shouldn't have had to pay for that. We'll try to take care of that. Because, yes, Jackson went down with his sister to Evansville, about a 2-hour drive, got the car. It looks like he's been living in it for a day and a half, whoever stole this car. There was just stuff. The whole back seat was full of personal belongings. The trunk was full of personal belongings. There was a phone in there. So that's the last I've heard. He was going to take it to a VW dealership, to the service department, ask them to give it the once over. It looks like the rims of the tires have been taken off. There were some scuffs, some scrapes, and the car was beyond empty. Like, he couldn't even drive it. There was no gas in it, which makes me wonder if the salvage yard drains cars when they come in to keep the gas, because how's the guy driving it with no gas? But whatever. Postscript, at least to now, is dude's arrested. We got the car back. Think it's in decent shape. I'll get more of a report on that. Still trying to figure out how some loser goes into a locked bedroom of a house and grabs keys. Doesn't totally add up to me, but I'll take my son's word because he's adamant. So that's where we stand. We got the car back. We'll see what shape it's in. It appears to be okay. Did not see that coming. It's the second Sinekin car to be stolen in the last 7 or 8 years. We had a van stolen off our driveway, but my wife left the keys in the van.
That'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do it. But it's like we live on a corner in Minnetonka where there's like a cul-de-sac in every direction. Like, it's not you can't drive through. There's no reason to come into our neighborhood unless you're like an Amazon guy dropping something off. There's, one cul-de-sac, another cul-de-sac. It just didn't feel like a spot where people are going to drive around looking for a car. But I guess, because it doesn't matter, but it just seemed odd. We did get that van back as well. Somebody was having a good time in there. It was trashed. We still have the van. We're still driving it. It's fine. But we had to get a serious detail done. So I'm hoping we're done with stolen cars. 2 for one family just seems like enough. But all's well that seems to have ended well when it comes to grand theft auto for our vehicles. Wanted to mention, I told you I'd watch some Wild tonight, which I will. I'm also very interested in watching how Paige Beckers follows up on her performance over the weekend. Elite 8 for UConn. It should have been the game of the tournament tonight because they're playing USC. Juju Watkins, the probably best player. No apologies to Paige, but was maybe considered the best player this season, along with Hidalgo at Notre Dame. We know Juju tore up her knee, torn ACL earlier in the tournament. So Southern Cal is still the number 1 seed, but missing their best player. It opens the door for UConn to advance to another Final Four. And how does Paige follow up that performance over the weekend, where she scored 19 straight points in the fourth quarter, scored 29 in the second half, finished with a career-high 40, a UConn record 40 when it comes to tournament games, and she is ending her UConn career in absolute style, just 3 more games away from the ultimate prize, and tonight is the Elite 8. It's UConn against USC on ESPN tonight. So a little hockey, little ladies hoops going back and forth on my agenda. Baseball, Twins are done playing. Nothing to worry about there tonight. So I would think those of us interested in Paige Becker's career, how does she follow up that legendary performance on, I think it was Saturday, that game tonight. All right, let's pause here. Final break. Last half hour, we'll catch up on some texts, go over the sports news of the day one more time, and take you up to the top of the hour. Wild hockey, Wild Devils coming up at 6 o'clock. Stay tuned. We're back right after these.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
It's brought to you by American Pressure.
Yeah, we're out early today. I'll certainly take it. 3 hours is nice and neat for me. I'll take it. We're out at 6. Wild hockey follows us. No pregame. We're going to take you right up to the start. They'll probably drop the puck at like 6:08. Wild and Devils. That's coming up at the top of the hour. I kind of want to go back to all this NFL stuff with the owners' meetings going on. We did speak with Ben Gessling back in the 3 o'clock hour at 3:30. And he gave us some thoughts on what they're discussing as far as rules changes. His meeting with KOC today, the Aaron Rodgers stuff came up again. And I think for the first time I've heard from Kevin O'Connell that, and maybe I missed it earlier, but that, Rodgers reached out to the Vikings to gauge their interest. That, I'm looking to keep playing if I can win a Super Bowl. The list is short of teams that I consider contenders. that might be in the market for a quarterback if things don't go the way they would like. And so KOC confirmed that, yeah, Rodgers reached out, so we had internal conversations. And, he has a personal relationship with Rodgers back to his playing days, which I was not familiar with. And, they've basically said, look, we're very comfortable with J.J. McCarthy, and we appreciate the interest, but we're going to move forward with our guy for now. That does not mean, in my mind, that this won't be revisited down the road if he chooses not to join the Pittsburgh Steelers, which right now appears to be his only option. There's an offer on the table. The Steelers have Mason Rudolph right now as their QB1. That's not ideal, and they're not in position to draft one unless Deion's kid drops in the draft, which I don't think will happen. And then there's the video that surfaced where Rodgers and DK Metcalf, the newest Steeler, got together over the weekend to throw the old ball around and get to know each other just a bit. And, Rodgers must know what Pittsburgh felt like to him, and if he truly wants to go to Pittsburgh, I don't know what he's waiting for. It feels like most of us probably believe, is Pittsburgh a Super Bowl contender? No, not really. They're a good organization. They're always in the mix. Got a nice defense, but they're in Baltimore's division and Cincinnati's division. And then we all know the other strong teams in that conference. At the top, it's meaty, obviously, beginning with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. So to me, if Rodgers is only sticking around to try to win a Super Bowl, the NFC is his best path. The Vikings are the only Super Bowl contender that don't have an obvious winning, successful quarterback. They have a 22-year-old quarterback who has yet to throw a pass in the NFL, who they obviously believe in, and they're going to give him every chance. So to me, Rodgers sits around and waits and sees if that continues to be the narrative as we go through the summer, or if another contender happens to lose their quarterback. And I keep thinking about the Rams and Matthew Stafford, who's been injury prone, and he's getting up there in age. And if he were to get hurt this summer, that's a place Rodgers could step right in and feel like, the Rams, perfect. That's a team I can win a Super Bowl with. There's, like I say, a really short list of contenders that have, obviously every quarterback can get hurt, but when you're talking about guys on the wrong side of 30, substantially so, and a guy like Stafford who has been banged up, I'm sure he's keeping an eye on the health of Matthew. The story's not going to die, right? It's going to just sort of be sitting there in the background, and we'll see how JJ looks in OTAs, how he comes through mini camps, and as long as everything's all systems go, that shouldn't be an issue here. But it's just a niggling thing that you sort of think about.
Do you think that if they signed, let's say, Tannehill tomorrow, do you think that kills it? Or do you think even then there would still be rumblings of, well, for 1 year, they might have a shot? Because let's be honest, if we're talking about just 2025, the best chance to win a big game for your Minnesota Vikings is with Aaron Rodgers. That's undoubtedly true. Now, does that mean it's the best decision for your organization going forward? Not necessarily. Trying to build J.J. McCarthy into your franchise guy so you don't have to constantly be on the carousel of quarterbacks in and out like the Vikings have been for a good portion of their franchise. And for your lifetime. Pretty much, yeah. And we've had 3. That's enough heel Packers talk for now. I don't know. I go back and forth on it because it's short term. It could pay off huge. Personally, I don't want to see it happen. I think I would throw up, personally, seeing him in purple with the horns on his helmet. I didn't think it would ever come to that just because of the bitterness that he had when he was in Green Bay towards Minnesota, drinking the Grape Crush and getting upset about the reaction towards the Anthony Barr collarbone breaking incident. Seems like all those, if there's a chance for him to win a big game, apparently he's willing to, his ego is not big enough to be able to overlook that. So good for him, I guess. But back to your question about like if they sign Tannehill, it's a good question, and I feel like that would end it. I don't think you sign Tannehill and then you bring in Rodgers too. I think that's your veteran guy. And as Ben said earlier, they're not in a real hurry to add a guy just yet because they don't want to
necessarily give up a comp pick if you sign a free agent. So there may not be a guy we know is going to join that room for quite a while. So I feel like that's the better decision. Just bring in a guy that you know can win a game or two if you need him, and hand the keys over to JJ at this point. That just feels like the right answer to me. Got a lot of texts coming in on the tush push and how everybody feels about that. And a number of people ask, well, what do you feel about when like a running back has gained 8-10 yards and the whole offensive line is pushing him forward while they're trying to stop him? And is that okay, Dave, if you don't think it's okay to push a quarterback? And I don't know, maybe I'm not being consistent here, but I feel like that's an entirely different thing because the play doesn't start that way. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're starting with three guys behind your running back and you're all pushing forward. It's just the end of a scrum. So to me, it's two different things. And, you know, I'm comfortable with my position here that I don't think the tush push is in the spirit of football. That helping a quarterback with guys pushing him from behind is what, you know, Naismith thought of when he developed football. Copyright comment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the fishing reel's going. Yeah, that's why you and me put in the, you know, motion as NFL owners to get this thing banned. We're on the same page here. So I agree. And it's behind, and there are some, like, I know in the language of the proposal that is trying to be as specific as possible to the tush push, like behind the line of scrimmage, whereas a situation like that where it's past the line of scrimmage or later in the play, it'd still be allowed. There was a really good text earlier, and I'm not going to be able to find it, but that pulling a player, pulling him forward, is against the rules right now. You cannot pull a player forward, yet you can push them forward.
But how would you pull a player forward? Aren't you pulling him backwards if you're pulling?
No,
by definition?
Like if a lineman were to turn around and pull Jalen Hurts or whatever quarterback, and he would fall backwards, but the play would go forward.
Have we ever seen that? Has that ever happened?
No, but you can theoretically do that. Or if it's in a scrum and you pull a player more forward, that's against the rules, allegedly, according to this texter. I'll trust him. But not so much when it comes to pushing.
Sounds like we will know maybe as quickly as tomorrow whether the tush push is still a thing. Go ahead.
The 651 guy. My question for the pro tush push folks is, if pulling a player forward, i.e. artificial advancement, is illegal, why should pushing a player forward be viewed any differently? I think it's a fair point.
Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it is. Text came into the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Can you get an update on the Colorado State guard coming to Minnesota? I haven't seen any actual confirmation, but Colorado State guard Kyan Evans is entering the transfer portal. Many believe he will follow Nico Medved to Minnesota and sign with the Gophers. He is a sophomore this past season, started all 36 games for Colorado State, averaged 10.5 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Most notably, he shot 44.5% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per night. That's top 25 in the country. Can always use more 3-point shooters. In Mountain West play alone, he shot 45% from deep. That was second best in the conference. And in their first round NCAA tournament win over Memphis, he had a career high 23 points, made 6 out of 9 from deep. That would be a sweet pickup. I don't know if it's official, but typically when a guy enters the portal, I don't know if he has a do not contact list. That usually tells you he's got a place in mind. But it sounds like after having such success under Nico, that might be on the docket. So the Gophers basically have like 10 or 11 scholarships to fill. Isaac Asuma, Grayson Gray, is that his name? Those two guys, the red shirt, that's all that's on the roster at this point. So they have to move quickly as the portal is open for another 2.5 weeks. It doesn't mean you have to sign everybody by then, but people can still add their names. As of the weekend, I think there are already over 1,000 people in the portal already. It is the wild, wild west. And for Nico, that has to be priority number one right now, is let's Let's get some warm bodies in here. Let's compete. He's not alone. There's a number of schools that are basically starting over. My alma mater, Indiana, has nobody on the roster right now. It's a complete clean slate. One of their players, Luke Goody, has petitioned for another year. We'll see if he gets it. The new coach's kid, Tucker DeVries, who played at West Virginia, got hurt. He's probably going to join the team, but you got to fill out an entire roster on the fly. It's not what these coaches expected when they get into this business, I do not think. When does the NFL schedule get released? Do you remember? Is that a May thing, or is that coming up in April along with the draft?
It's a good question. It's weird, too, because we already know the opponents. I mean, the opponents are out during the season.
We know the 17 teams the Vikings will play.
Yeah, it's just the order of it that gets people, or where they're going potentially. Well,
not just the order. It's like, all right, what are the Vikings' primetime games, right?
Yeah, that's true.
How are they going to finish in December? I'm sure most Viking fans begin with, are we playing Green Bay in the winter, or do we go to Green Bay when it's warm? Because it feels like the last few years, the Vikings have gone to Green Bay early in the season, and the second game has always been late at US Bank Stadium. I feel like we're due for a season finale at Lambeau. Feels like Green Bay gets Chicago. Doesn't it feel like the Vikes and Lions close every year and the Packers and Bears close every year?
Yeah.
I think it's time for a December-January game at Lambeau to close out the season. I'm calling the shot right now. I think that's what they're going to go with, is that. We're just 3.5 weeks now from the draft. It's going to be that season where we start really thinking long and hard. And one question I wanted to get to Ben, but we didn't have time. And it's not really the time because he's at the meetings and it's not a priority. But I have to think the betting money is that Kwesi moves down in this draft. We know he's made a lot of moves on draft day in his first couple years running the draft. But in light of the fact that they have 4 picks, that's it. It's great to have all this money to sign free agents. But at some point, you have to build a roster with young players that are cheap and that you can then, if they're good, sign to a second contract and not have to keep recycling new players into your building. And the more shots you get at it, the better, obviously. So it feels to me like a year where the Vikings will trade down from 24 and acquire picks. You know, maybe there's a quarterback that some team wants to jump up and get, like Jackson Dart from Ole Miss before you wait till the second round where you don't control that 5th year. So I'd have to believe the Vikings feel like if they move down a handful of spots and add a couple of picks, that's the ideal scenario for Minnesota this come draft night. And, of course, the draft's in Green Bay. The fan has learned. Mm-hmm. And same deal. Green Bay is thought of as a team that might move down.
Which would admittedly kind of stink.
It would be anticlimactic. And would they actually move out of the first round and not even make a pick on Thursday night when your fans are...
It's almost sacrilegious.
Yeah, it's going to be... I mean, you can't make football decisions based on your fans being happy because they're there and they want to hear a pick. But I wonder if it factors in to the equation at all. I feel like that would be interesting.
What I've got for schedule release is mid-May, but I don't...
So it's a ways off,
haven't seen actually like a hard date of when it is. But
they never tell you until the last minute.
You know what we're due for, speaking of schedule release? We're due for a Vikings-Packers game at Lambeau in the cold.
I just said
When's the last time that's happened?
No, that's what I just said. I feel like we're due, and I feel like season finale. Let's play each other week 18.
God, that'd be electric.
It would be so great. I know nobody agrees with us, but I think it's finally due. It's even if it's not the last game. It's time for a cold weather Viking-Packer game. What's that?
You get us in Lambeau when we're not really oiled up yet. We're not a well-run machine yet.
No, we're a second half of the season kind of operation is what we are.
Tongue-in-cheek.
All right, where else did I want to go here? The Twins, as we told you, lost today 9-0. Chris Paddock gets rocked. They are 0-4. No one's hitting. They're not the only team in this problem. The Milwaukee Brewers, another team I follow, same deal. They're 0-4. They can't get a hit. It gets to a point where, though, and Milwaukee got a home game today and got beat. I'm concerned about the home opener on Thursday. First, I'm concerned there might be snow on the ground because there is snow in the forecast tomorrow. But I'm worried about the reception the squad's going to get if they don't start putting bat on ball. We know Royce Lewis isn't out there. Brooks Lee is not out there. but these are supposed to be functional hitters that you're not facing, the Dodgers starting staff right now. You should be able to put the bat on the ball. Very frustrating start to a season for your Minnesota Twins so far. Let's get you an update on the Gopher women, who it's a final. They have knocked off the Gators 66-52. I think I read that the Gators' leading scorer is in the transfer portal, so was not a part of the team. That makes things more difficult. The Gophers will be in the championship of the CBIT, and they will face Belmont. Belmont knocked off Villanova today, 66-57. By the way, Maryland lost their coach. We didn't talk about that yesterday. Willard has left Maryland, gone to Villanova. Speaking of the Wildcats, that was the worst kept secret in college basketball the last week or two. He's in the Sweet 16. He's basically already campaigning for another job. So another Big Ten operation is available. I wonder if the new Drake coach will just move straight to Maryland and follow a path of Drake Bulldog coaches, the last three of which have joined the Big Ten. You can't rule it out at this point. All right, let's review what we had on this program today. 3 terrific guests that gave us a lot of information. I encourage you to listen back on the podcast. Brett Blakemore will have that up shortly after we are done today, right, Mr. Blakemore? That's on your docket.
Yes, sir.
At 3:30, we had Ben Gessling from the owners' meetings again. Talked with KOC today, talked with Kwesi, whose new deal is still being worked on. The thought is that'll get done before the season starts. Ben will continue to be down there the next couple of days. Some rules changes could be announced tomorrow, but a good chance to talk with other NFC coaches. Good conversation with Ben. That happened at 3:30 today. At 4 o'clock, John Krasinski chimed in with the fallout from, I've got a couple more names here. The Dante Donnybrook, the fracas on First Avenue, the Bullseye Brawl, Minneapolis Mayhem, whatever you want to call it. Wolves pull out the win after a major fight that saw 7 players ejected, 12 technicals in the game. It was old school 90s NBA, and the Wolves got their act together in the second half with a 19-point win over the Pistons. They're in Denver tomorrow. We await any potential suspensions. Johnny thought that could be announced tonight, tomorrow morning. Clearly want to have as many guys as possible for an angry Denver team that's had just about enough of your Minnesota Timberwolves. Then at 4:30, it was Russo Radio previewing tonight's Wild Devils game. The Wild hoping to get a measure of revenge from the loss at the X over the weekend. In fact, that is what's next. It's Wild Hockey on the Fan. I'm back on Wednesday afternoon. I look forward to that. Tomorrow, I think it's the hosting debut of longtime Gopher basketball player Parker Fox, whose eligibility is up. So now it's time to give radio a chance. Very anxious to hear Parker. I know he's got a number of really nice guests lined up for tomorrow's program, so I hope you'll give Parker a listen. I'm back Wednesday, and then JG from the Final Four will be in this chair on Thursday and Friday in San Antonio. Davey. Thank you, sir. It's always fun to be here with you.
You as well. Great job.
For Brett Blakemore, I'm Dave Sinekin. Stay tuned for Wild Hockey. That is next on The Fan.